March 30, 1939. Santa Monica, California. Just after sunrise, the fog still clings to the runway, low and stubborn, as mechanics pull their hands from their pockets and stamp their feet against the morning chill. Ahead of them stands an aircraft that was supposed to change the future of flight, and already feels like a mistake. The Douglas D-4E looms on the tarmac, massive for its time. 4 engines, a pressurized cabin, tricycle landing gear that looks almost alien in an age of taildraggers. Its polished aluminum skin reflects the pale California light, but beneath that shine is disappointment. Months of delays, endless redesigns, spiraling costs. For American Airlines, the dream has quietly died. Inside the cockpit, test pilot Carl Cover runs a gloved hand across the instrument panel. Too complex, too heavy, too expensive? Everyone here knows it, even if no one says it out loud. And somewhere far beyond the fog, across an ocean already thick with tension, the Imperial Japanese Navy is watching. You can almost hear the gears turning. By the late 1930s, aviation has become more than transportation. It is prestige, power, a measuring stick for modern nations. And Japan, racing to assert itself as a global empire, is painfully aware of one truth. Its long-range bomber technology is falling behind. Japanese engineers are brilliant, disciplined, innovative, but range is a problem. Payload is a problem. And time is slipping away. So when word reaches Tokyo that the Americans are quietly shelving their most ambitious airliner, curiosity turns into opportunity. The D-4E is not a failure to Japan. It is a shortcut. Negotiations happen quietly? No press releases, no speeches. Officially, this is just a commercial transaction, an American manufacturer selling a civilian aircraft to a foreign buyer. Nothing unusual, nothing political, but everyone involved understands the subtext. When the paperwork is signed, Douglas engineers watch as the aircraft they poured years into is dismantled piece by piece. Wings removed, engines crated, fuselage sections wrapped and labeled, each bolt carefully catalogued. It feels less like a sale and more like a handover. By the summer of 1939, the D-4E's remains are crossing the Pacific, and when they arrive in Japan, they are not sent to an airline hangar. They are sent to Nakajima Aircraft Company. Inside a guarded facility, Japanese engineers begin what can only be described as an autopsy. Every system is studied, every rivet measured. The pressurization system draws particular attention. So does the wing structure, thick, strong, built for endurance. The Americans had found it too much. Japan sees something else entirely? What if this airliner could be reborn? What if civilian luxury could be stripped away and replaced with bomb racks, gun turrets, armor plating? What if the very features that made the D-4E impractical for airlines, its size, its complexity, could be turned into strengths? The Imperial Japanese Navy issues a requirement that borders on fantasy. A 4-engine heavy bomber capable of striking targets thousands of kilometers away. A bomber that could threaten enemy ports, industrial centers, even continents. The D-4E becomes the blueprint? On drafting tables, clean civilian lines are redrawn into something darker. Windows vanish. Bomb bays appear. Defensive armament is sketched in pencil, then ink. The aircraft is given a new designation, G5N. Later, it will receive a name meant to inspire awe. Shinzan? Mountain that cannot be moved. But even as the blueprints multiply, warning signs are already there. The D-4E was never meant to be a bomber. Its structure is heavy, but not combat hardened. Its engines, powerful on paper, are temperamental. Its systems demand constant maintenance, and the more Nakajima modifies the design, the further it drifts from the delicate balance that makes an aircraft actually work. Still, no one wants to be the man who says stop, because admitting failure now would mean admitting something far worse. That Japan may have bet its future air power on an aircraft America couldn't wait to get rid of. And soon the Shinzan will leave the ground for the first time, carrying with it not just bombs and fuel, but the weight of an empire's ambition. Whether it can carry that weight is another matter entirely. Birth of a monster? April 1941. Mitaka Airfield, Western Tokyo. Midday. The ground crew steps back as the engines begin to cough to life. One by one, each roar echoing off the hangars like distant thunder. Black smoke spills briefly from the exhausts before thinning into a trembling haze. The aircraft squats on the runway, enormous, unfamiliar, wrong. This is no sleek Mitsubishi fighter? No agile dive bomber. This is Shinzan. From a distance you might mistake it for a transport. Up close, the illusion collapses. The fuselage is swollen, almost bloated, stretched to house a massive bomb bay never intended for this airframe. Gun positions protrude awkwardly from the nose, dorsal spine, and tail, as if bolted on as an afterthought. The wings, copied from the D-4E but reinforced again and again, sag slightly under their own weight. Inside the cockpit, the test crew strap in. The pilots know the rumors? Everyone does. Engineers whisper that the aircraft is overweight, that the engines struggle to deliver their promised power, that the center of gravity is questionable. But orders are orders. The throttles are pushed forward, the Shinzan lurches, then rolls, its acceleration sluggish and unsettling. Seconds stretch. The end of the runway rushes closer. For a moment, just a moment, it feels like the bomber might refuse to fly at all. Then finally, the wheels leave the ground. You can almost feel the collective exhale across the airfield. In the air, however, relief turns to tension. The aircraft is stable, but painfully slow. Control inputs lag, turns feel wide and heavy, like steering a ship rather than flying a bomber. Engine temperatures creep upward, vibration rattles through the airframe, magnified by the sheer mass of the machine. This is not how a heavy bomber should feel. And yet, on paper, the Shinzan is impressive. A maximum bomb load comparable to American heavy bombers. Range figures that promise intercontinental reach. 4 engines instead of 2, symbolically placing Japan among the great air powers of the world. But paper does not fight wars. As test flights continue, the flaws multiply. The engines, Nakajima NK7A Mamoru, are unreliable, prone to overheating, and mechanical failure. Maintenance crews spend more time under the cowling than in the air. Spare parts are scarce, modifications pile upon modifications, each one adding weight, complexity, and new problems. The aircraft's defensive armament, intended to protect it from fighters, creates drag that further robs speed. Fully loaded, the Shinzan struggles to climb. At altitude, it becomes a lumbering target. Exactly what a bomber must never be. Japanese pilots are not fools. They know what happens to slow bombers in contested skies. They have seen American -17s absorb damage and keep flying. They have watched German He-177s struggle under the weight of bad design choices. And now, strapped into the Shinzan, they feel the same creeping realization. This aircraft is too much, and not enough. By late 1941, as war with the United States becomes inevitable, pressure mounts to rush the Shinzan into service. Japan needs long-range striking power, the Pacific is vast, targets are far, and the idea of a bomber capable of reaching enemy territory directly, without island hopping, is intoxicating. But reality intrudes. The Shinzan's production is slow, painfully slow. Each aircraft consumes enormous resources, aluminum, skilled labor, engine components, all of which are becoming scarcer by the month. Factories already strained by fighter and carrier aircraft production struggle to justify this massive diversion. Worse still, intelligence reports begin to filter in. America is not standing still. New bombers are coming. Faster, higher flying, better armed. Designed from the ground up for war, not adapted from a failed airliner. Against those machines, the Shinzan would be flying blind. Still, a decision is made. The program will continue. At least for now. Because canceling it would mean admitting that years of effort, and one very expensive American aircraft, have led nowhere. And so the Shinzan is officially accepted into the Imperial Japanese Navy's inventory. Not as a frontline bomber, but as something far less glorious, a long-range reconnaissance platform, a transport, a stopgap, a giant aircraft built to change the war, already relegated to the margins before it ever sees combat. And soon, as Japan's fortunes begin to turn, the Shinzan will face a far crueler judgment than any test pilot or engineer could deliver. Because war does not forgive bad design, and the sky is about to become very crowded. Too big to hide, too slow to survive. Mid-1942, Truk Lagoon. Early morning, the sun lifts slowly over the Pacific, casting long reflections across the water as ships sit at anchor, carriers, cruisers, oilers, each one a piece of Japan's far-flung war machine. Above them, the airfield stirs to life. Parked near the edge of the runway, the Shinzan looks out of place. Its sheer size makes concealment impossible. Camouflage paint does little to disguise the bomber's bulk. From the air, it would stand out instantly. From the ground, it feels almost vulnerable, an enormous target waiting for someone to notice. And someone will. By now, Japan is fighting a very different war than the one its planners imagined. The quick victories of 1941 are fading. Midway has happened. The balance has shifted. American carrier groups are probing deeper into the Pacific, and with them comes an enemy Japan had underestimated. Long-range reconnaissance backed by industrial scale. The Shinzan's assigned role is cautious, almost timid. It flies patrols, it transports personnel. Occasionally, it scouts distant waters, where smaller aircraft cannot reach. It does not fly bombing missions. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. You can almost sense the unspoken relief among the crews. They know what would happen if this aircraft met American fighters. In flight, the Shinzan is an exercise in compromise. Its range is impressive, yes, but every kilometer comes at a cost. Fuel consumption is enormous. Engine reliability remains questionable. Crews monitor gauges constantly, knowing that a single engine failure could doom the aircraft over open ocean. And speed. Speed is the killer. At cruising altitude, the Shinzan cannot outrun anything. Not fighters. Not even some patrol aircraft. Its only defense is distance, and hope. Hope that no one is looking. But by late 1942, American intelligence is looking. Aerial photographs begin to circulate among U.S. analysts. They show something unusual on Japanese airfields, a four-engine aircraft larger than any bomber Japan has previously fielded. Reports describe its shape, its approximate wingspan, its sluggish performance. The reaction is confusion. This is not what American planners expected. Japan was supposed to rely on medium bombers, twin-engine aircraft, fast, agile, limited in range. This thing, whatever it is, doesn't fit the pattern, and that makes it dangerous. Or so it seems. In reality, the Shinzan is already being quietly sidelined. Only a handful are ever completed, far fewer than the ambitious plans once envisioned. Some sources speak of 6 aircraft, others suggest even fewer reached operational status. Each one is a logistical burden. Each one requires resources Japan can no longer spare. As the war grinds on, priorities harden. Fighters take precedence. Interceptors. Anything that can stop the incoming American bombers now threatening the home islands. The Shinzan offers none of that. Its engines remain a nightmare. The Mamoru program collapses under its own complexity, forcing consideration of alternative power plants, each swap bringing new delays, new redesigns, new failures. The airframe, already overweight, becomes heavier still. And then, the inevitable question surfaces in staff meetings and engineering offices alike. What is this aircraft for? It cannot escort itself. It cannot survive contested airspace. It cannot be produced in meaningful numbers. The answer, increasingly, is silence. By 1943, the Shinzan is effectively obsolete, without ever having fought a battle. Some airframes are grounded, others are cannibalized for parts. Crews are reassigned. Training stops. The mountain that cannot be moved has become exactly that, immobile. And yet, its existence leaves behind a deeper, more troubling lesson. Japan did not fail because it lacked courage, or intelligence, or ambition. It failed because it tried to shortcut experience. Because it believed that copying an aircraft, no matter how advanced, could replace the brutal, iterative process of designing a bomber for war. The Americans had rejected the D-4E for being too complex. Japan turned the complexity into a weapon, and paid the price. Soon American heavy bombers will arrive over Japan in numbers so vast they will darken the sky. They will fly higher, faster, and farther than the Shinzan ever could. And when they do, the Shinzan will not rise to meet them. It will be on the ground, waiting, forgotten. The bomber that never fought. November 24, 1944. Over Tokyo, just before noon. High above the city, contrails streak the sky like white scars. B-29 superfortresses fly in disciplined formation, their silver bodies catching the winter sun as they move with cold precision toward their targets. The air is thin, the temperature brutal, but the bombers are built for this. On the ground below, sirens wail. Anti-aircraft guns begin to bark. Black bursts of flak blooming uselessly beneath the American formations. Japanese fighters claw for altitude, engines screaming, pilots straining every ounce of performance from their aircraft. This is the war Japan now faces. And somewhere, parked in a quiet corner of an airfield, sits the Shinzan. It does not scramble. It does not intercept. It does not matter. The cruel irony is impossible to miss. The aircraft once envisioned as Japan's answer to long-range bombing, the machine that was supposed to carry the fight outward across oceans, now watches as the fight comes home. By this stage of the war, the Shinzan is a ghost program. Officially, it still exists. Unofficially, it has been written off. Its surviving airframes are used sparingly, if at all, occasionally for transport, sometimes for long-range ferry flights, often for nothing at all. Fuel shortages alone make its operation impractical. Training crews for such a specialized aircraft is no longer feasible. Spare parts are non-existent, and even if a Shinzan could be made fully operational, the question remains unanswered. What would it actually do? Send it against American fleets? It would be detected long before it reached bombing range. Send it against distant bases? It would be intercepted and destroyed. Use it as a night bomber? Its size and radar signature would betray it. The aircraft has no place in this war. Japanese aviation doctrine, once built around speed and precision, has been overtaken by an enemy with overwhelming industrial muscle. The Shinzan represents the opposite of what Japan now needs, an aircraft too large, too slow, too demanding. In a bitter twist, the very features that made the D-4E attractive in 1939, its range, its endurance, its complexity, have become liabilities in a total war economy. American bombers arrive not as prototypes or experiments, but in waves. Thousands of aircraft, standardized parts, interchangeable crews, a system designed to absorb losses and keep flying. The Shinzan was a one-off, a dead end. As air raids intensify, airfields across Japan are camouflaged, dispersed, hidden. Large aircraft are liabilities? They cannot be easily concealed. They draw attention. They invite destruction. Some Shinzan airframes are deliberately dismantled, others are reportedly destroyed on the ground during air raids, erased without ever having fired a shot in anger. No heroic last stand, no desperate mission, no footnote in a battle report, just absence. And after the war, when Allied forces begin cataloging Japan's aviation efforts, the Shinzan barely registers. It appears in reports as a curiosity, a large four-engine bomber that went nowhere. A footnote compared to the Zero, the Betty, the Hay-8. Yet for historians, the Shinzan tells a far more revealing story. It is the story of ambition without alignment, of borrowing technology without understanding the ecosystem that made it viable, of mistaking possession for mastery. The D-4E had failed in America because it was too advanced for its time. In Japan, it failed for the opposite reason. The war demanded simplicity, reliability, numbers, and the Shinzan offered none of them. But its legacy does not end on the airfield, because the lesson it leaves behind is one that echoes far beyond World War II into every era where nations believe that acquiring advanced machines is enough to secure victory. The Shinzan was never truly a bomber. It was a warning. The lesson written in aluminum. August 1945. Atsugi Airfield, late afternoon. The war is over. The air is heavy with heat and silence as American personnel walk the perimeter of captured Japanese airfields, clipboards in hand, cameras slung around their necks. Hangars stand open, aircraft sit abandoned where they were last parked, some stripped, some burned, some eerily intact. And there it is, a massive, unfamiliar shape resting on flattened tires, the Shinzan. U.S. intelligence officers pause longer than usual. They measure, photograph, compare notes. This aircraft does not match the sleek fighters they have studied for years. It is too large, too awkward, too unfinished. One officer notes its resemblance to an American transport. Another traces the lineage more precisely. Douglas, D-4E. The realization lands quietly but firmly. Japan built a heavy bomber around a plane America had already rejected. And suddenly, the entire story snaps into focus. The Shinzan was never meant to be a dead end. It was meant to be a leap, an attempt to skip painful years of experimentation by borrowing someone else's future. But technology does not exist in isolation. It depends on logistics, on training, on industrial depth, on doctrine. America could abandon the DC-4E because it could afford to. The failure fed into something better, the C-54 Skymaster, the B-29 Superfortress, an entire ecosystem of long-range aviation that matured at breathtaking speed. Japan could not afford that learning curve. Instead, it tried to freeze a moment in time, 1939, and force it to carry the weight of a global war. The result was an aircraft that embodied contradiction, advanced yet impractical, ambitious yet ineffective, powerful on paper and fragile in reality. In the end, the Shinzan's greatest impact was not in combat, but in contrast. It showed what happens when strategy outruns capability, when prestige projects overshadow operational reality, when copying replaces understanding. You can almost imagine the conversations that never made it into official records. Engineers who knew the aircraft was flawed, pilots who felt its weakness in their hands, officers who sensed that this bomber would never fly the missions it was built for. But war leaves little room for doubt. The Shinzan disappears into archives, photographs, and fragments of aluminum. No surviving airframes remain today? No museum centerpiece, no restored example. Just drawings, reports, and a name that promised immovability and delivered inertia. History often remembers the weapons that won wars, but sometimes, the most important stories belong to the ones that failed. Because in failure, the truth is clearer. The Shinzan was not history's worst heavy bomber, because it crashed spectacularly, or was slaughtered in battle. It earned that title because it never truly entered the fight at all, a symbol of misaligned ambition in a war that punished every mistake. And somewhere in that quiet lesson, written in rivets and rejected blueprints, lies the answer to a question every military power eventually faces. Is possessing advanced technology the same as being ready to use it? For Japan's Shinzan, the answer came too late.